This is the Black Sword Hack Ultimate Chaos Edition, an old-school dark fantasy RPG, a game by Kobayashi, and this edition comes grace of the Merry Mushman of the Nog Sein fame. In this review, I will tell you what kind of game this is, who is it for, I'll give you a brief overview of the rules and share my highlights from the book. And in the end, I will give my recommendations what other RPG books you can use in conjunction with this one. If this is something that interests you, like and subscribe to my channel, and let's get into this. The Black Sword Hack is a rules-light D20 system to play epic sword and sorcery stories that will change the world they are set in forever or leave them destroyed. It is heavily inspired by Michael Moorcock's Elric of Myrnebone saga and Stormbringer. But it has also enough flexibility and elements to play a variety of sword and sorcery stories. This is for GMs and players who don't want to bother with the rules so much, who don't want to plan out character and go into minute detail, but like to enjoy drama and an epic storyline. The basic dice mechanic are a D20 roll under system. You've got your typical 6 attributes with a starting value between 8 and 13, and to attack, to defend, to pass any situational check, you need to roll under your score, and there might be a negative modifier applied to that score. For example, if you are defending against an opponent that is of higher level than your character, then the difference is added to your score or subtracted from your attribute, whatever you want. The difference lower your chances of success. The game also knows critical success and failure, advantage and disadvantage die, just like in 5e, but you can also get an advantage die on your damage, for example. This game knows usage die. These are used to represent any abstract resource like cosmic luck or the favor a merchant owns you. And whenever that comes into question, you can roll on your usage die. And if you roll a 1 or 2, the usage die gets lowered to a lower dice level from 20 to 12 to 10 to 8 to 6 to 4, and eventually it is used up. And most notably, it uses this rule for Doom, its Doom mechanic. Every character has a Doom die that starts at a D6 and that gets replenished to a D6 during a long rest. You roll on your Doom die when you take the same action twice during a combat turn. Each character has 2 actions in a combat turn, usually that would be movement and an attack. But if you want 2 movements or if you want to do 2 attacks, you roll on your Doom die. There are also some special abilities and magic that require you using up Doom dice or at least rolling on it. And if you roll a critical failure on your attribute test, you have to roll on the Doom die. But maybe most important is this small rule here, call on Doom. When you really want to pass a skill check, you can roll your Doom die and subtract that result from any attribute test, thus making it easier. And then the Doom die is automatically downgraded without rolling. This makes it a kind of effort die. Use it up if you really want to succeed at something, and eventually your character is just super tired. Or like it is called here, the character is doomed. All attribute tests and damage rolls are made with disadvantage until you take a long rest. Combat is round-based. You make a wisdom check to determine who goes first. You attack with strength and melee and with dexterity at range, so far so good. But you also have to defend. This is a player-facing system, enemies automatically hit you unless you can defend. But you can defend as often as you need to each turn, and you've got the choice of either parrying, making a strength test, or dodging, making a dexterity test. Any weapons usually do 1d6 damage, and any unarmed damage is usually 1d4. So choosing your weapon is more about the style and if it is fitting to your character or using whatever you get than on the damage they deal. Which is keeping in spirit with the sword and sorcery stories this is inspired by, because Conan the Barbarian is deadly no matter if he's got a dagger in his hand or a battle axe. Though big two-handed weapons roll damage with advantage, so roll 2d6, take the higher, so they do a bit more damage. Since in this game you roll to defend and you don't have armor class, the armor is absorption. And depending if you have light, medium or heavy armor, you've got 1, 2 or 3 points of absorption. Also, if you are carrying a shield, you get advantage when rolling to parry. Hit points and damage. Your hit points are just your constitution score at the beginning, so 8 to 13. Weapons do d6 damage, so not so much, but also not so little that you are one-shot. Your characters start as capable fighters. And if you fall to 0, you are helpless, unable to do anything except talk feebly. And once the fight is over, you check on this table to see what actually happened. So maybe they're just scratched, maybe they're severely injured, disadvantage on all aptitude tests for the rest of the session. Maybe they are butchered and maimed and lose points of their attributes. And if they're unlucky and roll a 6, they're killed. Create a new character of the same level. And a surviving character immediately gets d4 HP back and can continue the adventure. So there's no death saves in here, and combat will often be short and very violent. And usually you don't bother with helping up the helpless characters and either get them out of the fight or win the fight and then see what is what. But this system is not super deadly. It's definitely heroic fantasy. To create a character, you start rolling your attributes, 2d6 for each attribute in order, and then note the score using the table below. This gives you attributes from 8 to 13, with most attributes falling somewhere on 10 or 11. Then you can choose and roll for an origin. And I love that each of these rolls, each of these examples is full of sword and sorcery flavor. So you come from a slave camp, an island just before the invaders come, during your clan's last raid, were born inside an invocation pentacle near the sorcerer's body. All of these origins are interesting and have implications on who the character is. And then you also pick 3 backgrounds. 2 have to come from your origin, and 1 you can take from any origin. And these not only give you a bit more background, what did your character do, who is he, but also give you special abilities. For example, the assassin. Your first attack against an unaware target is an automatic hit that deals damage equal to your dexterity score, and you get +1 dexterity. Or herbalist. You can create d6 doses of healing balm, hallucinogenic drugs, or poison. You need a long rest close to nature to replenish your stock, +1 intelligence. And with these backgrounds, you can build quite different characters. From the barbarian berserker, over the sword and shield fighter, ranger, druid, whatever combination you like, whatever strikes your fancy, because this game knows no classes. Your character is made out of your attributes, your origins, your background, and your equipment. One rule I really like in the combat is the attack effect. If you want to add an effect to your attack, say so before you make the attribute test, and then make a doom roll. So put effort into your attack. And you've got a nice selection of effects that the attack could have, like break your opponent's weapon, add the doom dice results to the damage you inflict, disarm, entangle, And I like the flurry option. Inflict regular damage and immediately get an additional attack. That might be very useful when you're fighting against a group of enemies. It also doesn't state that the additional attack can't be another flurry with effect. But you'd have to make, of course, another doom roll. And with d6 die, it won't take long until you're doomed and exhausted. But if you're in a pinch, I think there could be some spectacular maneuvers you could pull off with a combination of all of these. Or you might rule that you can't use another attack effect after a flurry action, but you could still use your 2 combat round actions to make 2 attacks by ruling on your Doomday, and then maybe do a shove to get your opponent on the ground and then finish him off with a brutal attack. Experience and getting better. This game focuses heavily on your character's story. So each time a character survives an adventure, they gain a story. Write down the title of the adventure on your character sheet. Characters gain a level once they have a number of stories equal to their current level. The maximum level a character can reach is 10. So it doesn't matter how many monsters you defeat, it doesn't matter how much gold you plunder. All that matters at the end of the day is that you survived and that you've got a story to tell. Also notice the optional rule. If this is too slow for you, you can run a faster paced campaign. Consider each session as a chapter from a character's story. This is not actually changing the rules, this is just changing how you think about them. Many classic sword and sorcery stories like the Conan stories or Fafard and the Grey Mouser were short, self-contained stories, like in Adventure. And only over the course of many of these self-contained stories did the world around the characters change and the characters themselves change. But if you want to run a tighter ship, like one epic story, 1,000-page books, don't consider each gaming session a standalone story, but just a chapter in that book. Each time you level up, you gain 1 HP, and your HP start equal to your constitution score. So they start at a maximum of 13. You get 1 per level. So hit points won't balloon with higher levels, keeping fights from becoming too long, and even low-level monsters still stay dangerous, even to high-level characters. Also, at any even level, you gain +1 to an attribute to a maximum of 18, and at every uneven level, you gain a gift. These gifts come from the forces of balance, chaos, or law. This game is focusing on the cosmic struggle between the forces of law and the forces of chaos. Dark pacts and other vilenesses is the magic system. Sword and sorcery, magic is usually done by summoning demons and other chaotic practices, and is often only seen in the hands of the antagonist, but sometimes the protagonist too can use these dark powers and hasten their inevitable doom. And this game comes with several flavors of magic, and it encourages you to pick a few and not use all of them. Demonic pacts allow you to summon demons, and these give you some more subtle magic effects that maybe are more useful in a court intrigue than in open combat. For example, Demon from the Abyss, target becomes monstrous, misshapen, or disfigured. That would be great to do to a rivaling priest, for example. Or Gluttony. Your target attacks randomly selected people and tries to eat them. And since demons are never seen, as they don't appear physically, this is rather subtle magic. Then you've got the choice of Spirit Alliance, which allows you summon spirits from an elemental plane. And these give you influence over natural forces like the river spirit, fire, wind, but also hunger or pain. And these are useful for a more shamanistic, a more druidic character who has power over the natural world and its spirits. Also note, same as with the demons, if you want an alliance with another spirit, the spirit will ask for a price, and this is most likely an adventure hook. For example, use it to kill a cult leader. Then you go on an adventure to find and kill that cult leader. Sorcery is most like the spell magic we know from traditional D&D. So we got a number of spells, but all spells in this list are nefarious black magic. For example, your basic combat spell is Call the Id. You summon an invisible creature made of anger. It can remove, by meaning remove, that means smash, a physical obstacle or inflict 2d6 damage before disappearing. It's a very basic effect, but you summon an invisible creature made out of anger. And you've got 50 of these spells in here. Nice dark selection for your wizards out there. And if you want more spells, you don't just gain them, you have to search for them. This is most likely the goal of an adventure you go on. For example, where's that spell? In the hands of an entombed queen waiting to be awoken. Then we've got fairy ties. This is more something out of folklore. We deal with fairies and denizens of the Fae, with Snifflebin or the Wild Hunt. And you can either start with this or maybe gain this during the game, but these only make sense really if your game is Fae themed. Then they will give you something like a Cauldron of Gold. You own a magical gold bezant worth 100 coins that always finds its way back to you after 1d8 dawns. It is part of a treasure of immense value, towards which it could lead you if only you knew the right charm. Or you get the Skinwalker. You know the spells needed to turn into an animal while wearing a specially prepared pelt. So cool stuff for a druid or a hero from the Isles. Then we come to something completely different. Twisted Science. You can build steampunk-esque contraptions with effects so out there they cannot be distinguished from magic. Like a metal owl, an owl automaton that can follow simple orders. It's 4 IP and can distract a foe but cannot attack. Or the sleep box, a music box that plunges every living creature hearing its melody into a trance. And these are just a few examples. If you've got inspiration, if you can make it up, you can probably build it somehow. You just need your mad inventor workshop and a lot of intelligence. Intelligence is a resource you have to spend on these, and you spend less on maintenance than on making new stuff. And all of these have a usage die, so if you use them often, eventually they will break down. And last but not least, we have runic weapons. These are your Excaliburs, your Stormbringers, your Glumdrings. Weapon possessed by a spirit, by a demon, possessing their own intelligence, speaking to the wielder with powerful magic effects. But that will also kill the wielder. Runic weapons has an intelligence score. The GM makes an in-test for it at the beginning of each session. If successful, the weapon will kill the character if they ever become helpless, or if they fall to 0 hit points during that session. At the GM's discretion, the weapon can take the life of an important NPC instead. And if you've read Elric of Melniboné and Stormbringer, that is what happens most of the time. He kills someone he didn't really want to kill. And we've got a nice selection of random table to make unique runic weapons for your own game world, like the Bastard Sword of Withering Light, and that might be made from cold iron and devour the soul of anyone it kills. Or maybe grants d6 HP back to the wielder. You want to make it really powerful. And the rules encourage you only to have 1 or maybe 2 of these weapons in your game world. No character starts with these. These are super mighty artifacts that a big chunk of a game world's story will revolve around. if you choose to include them in your campaign. For the Bestiary, we've got very minimal stats, since this is a player-facing system and player rolls and everything. And maybe they get a penalty to their roll because the enemy is higher level than they are. But other than that, very simple. Nice selection of typical sword and sorcery enemies in here. And all of them have 2 example modes of attack. Even the Angry Peasant has the Pitchfork. You can defend with Dex or Strength and it does 3 damage on average. And they've got the Torch, defend with Dexterity, and they will burn you for D4 ongoing damage. And for ongoing damage, this game uses a usage die that will eventually go out on its own, but you might want to extinguish the fire before you're burned to a crisp. And sadly, we don't have many illustrations in here, but we've got very flavorful text. For example, the Blind Hunters. This is your Assassin's Guild. Children are taken or bought by vicious cult members, remove their eyes and pump them full of drugs for years, training them to become the ultimate hunters. Blind hunters will always find you. We've got 2 varieties here. The Sniffers. Sniffer's role is to distract you while the killer does the dirty work. And the Killers have true arrows that ignore armor and poisonous blades to finish the job. And on the high level end of the enemy spectrum, we've got the Desiccated Dragon. Scholars believe dragons are a thing of the past, but incredibly old ones can still be found. They do not care for riches, honor, or flattery. Dragons who have been alive for these many millennia only interested in complex mind games. Dimwits and boors are quickly turned to ashes. And as said, you've got a short but nice selection of your sword and sorcery mainstays for enemies. But since enemies only have their level and a few attack moves, it should be easy to convert any monster you can find or come up with to the Black Sword hack. Create your world. Now this is an interesting combination. The Black Sword hack has its own default setting, but each group and each campaign is different because they have so many customization options. At the beginning of the campaign, when you make up the world, you choose or you roll who's the main antagonist, who's the main villain, what do the troops look like, where on your map are these places of interest, what is the political situation in these places, what calamities are striking the world. Then for the points of interest you just placed, you can roll or choose one of 6 adventure seeds. And you can see how many different combinations you will have to make your game world absolutely unique. For example, the City of Thieves. How is order maintained in such a place? Does each member make a sacred oath to protect the city? Is that a tightly knit community with us against the world, or a den of iniquity where only traitors and bullies thrive? And then choose. The city has no standing army. When it's invaded by your campaign's main antagonist, its inhabitants wage a brutal guerrilla war. Or maybe, a never-ending storm is droning the city. Finding the spirit responsible for this will take the characters to the city's reflection in the spirit world, where strange ghostly guilds vie for power. And like this, you've got a ton of different adventure seeds for a campaign map. Then you've got rules to create your own cities, some random tables you can roll on, useful but basic stuff. We've got rules for travels and random encounters during travels, short, concise, and with consequences. A long journey is an adventure in and of itself, and often will not go as planned. We've got 2 example adventures. One is Dark Seed, that starts the character without knowing how they got there in the ruins of a temple in a ruined city, with cannibals outside. Then we've got Slayers of the Blood God, an infiltration of a blood god in a fortress. Also get an example city with some description and some points of interests. and NPCs that inhabit the city, and something I really like, in the appendices there are so many useful tools. Advice for running the game, and I love this page. Advice from the great old ones. Like for example, we bow to no man's ultimate command, dance to no wizard's drummings, join no mob, hark to no wildering hate call. The Black Sword Hack is not a mission-based game. Characters shouldn't wait for patrons to give them work. In the end, they should only work for themselves and what they believe in. So rather than give your characters quest givers and missions from the Adventurers Guild, give them rumors and opportunities to gain what they want out of life. 2 pages of rules for solo play, which you can also use for regular play if you don't really know where you want to go. And that includes the Dark God's Oracle. If you really don't know what should be going on, you can ask the Dark Gods questions and then roll a d6 for the answer. Hell no, no, no bot, yes, hell yes. And then some more random tables to get a more concrete answer out of that. Included in this section is an example world that was made by Evelyn Moreau and shared on her blog after the release of the Black Sword Hack First Edition. And here you can see an example how you can put the building blocks that the Brooks presents to you together, but also that you can ignore them and add your own stuff. This here is an interesting idea to generate story and get ideas. Your favorite sword and sorcery book is a plot generator. Find a novel or short story you like. Open the book on a random page and stab the page with your finger. Write down the first name or noun you come across. Flip to another random page and find a verb using the same method. Repeat the process for noun or name. And you continue that until you have an idea for an adventure. I think if you love sword and sorcery, you will have a good selection of books you can do this with. Last but not least, the system reference document for the Black Sword Hack is released under Creative Commons. So you can use these rules, reuse them, publish material for them and everything. It's all in the public domain. That is something that I really love and applaud the Merry Mushman for doing. And that is the Black Sword Hack. It gives you all the tools you need to run several campaigns actually in a sword and sorcery world, in a doomed sword and sorcery world. And it should also work well together with other sword and sorcery role-playing games. Worlds Without Numbers, for example, will give you endless tables and tools to create adventures and NPCs and plot hooks and everything. Or the background books and the adventures from the Conan RPG, from all Conan RPGs actually, could easily be used with the rules from the Black Sword Hack if you want a more rules-light system than the original Conan system. And if you don't like the rules of the Black Sword Hack, you could easily use all of the world-building tools this gives you and run a sword and sorcery campaign in this style with a completely different system. You could run it in Fate 5e or maybe in the Shadowdark system, if you prefer the rules of those systems, but like the campaign ideas from this game. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I wish thee safe travels, dreamers, until we shall meet again.